take your trip through the Caribbean, back up the coast. Man, that really is a young man's adventure right there. So what happens next? How do you end up back in school, end up back in college?
So on board that ship that summer,
Yeah.
I read a James Herriot book.
Okay. All right. That's where I was kind of taking
Yeah,
this.
yeah. It was all things great and small.
All creatures great.
All creatures great and small. And it just hit me. I want to be a
Okay.
veterinarian. I had one more year
Yep.
of active duty, and then I had to decide.
Thank you very much for joining us during the third installment of the Axe and Scalpel podcast. I'm joining in studio with Jacob Smith, veterinarian, and also a new guest, veterinarian Todd Berry. We miss you very much right now, Rick Rapp. We miss you, but we got a lot of cool stuff to talk about today. We're looking forward to hearing more about the vet Todd Berry and how he came to the great North Woods.
Yes, sir. So, third episode of the Ox and Scalpel podcast. Johnny, we're back this week. It's Tuesday. Tell me about your weekend, my friend.
Weekend was good. I went home to the cities to hang out with my mom, dad, sister, and niece. I have another niece. She's actually skiing in Colorado.
Okay.
She's getting kind of good. I'm not going to use the old word Olympics or anything, but yeah, it's pretty neat. They can videotape and record these things. You can watch them on YouTube as they go down the slopes. And that wasn't our only programming. I don't know how many views we have now, but I watched the first episode, or I should say, listen to the first episode of the Axe and Scalpel podcast.
So like an athlete, you were self-evaluating.
I had that with some very highly critical people.
Yeah.
Family. You know how that always goes. But yeah, it was a great time. The weather was nice in the cities. Food was good. Fellowship was fantastic. And I had a great time. What'd you guys end up doing?
Well, so maybe, that's a general reminder to me. Maybe that's why I didn't make it as a professional athlete, because I wasn't willing to put the time in.
Yeah, right.
No, we had a good week myself with family, doing a little traveling, went back to Duluth and saw the family along Lake Superior where I grew up. And then I had some fun as a man the past week here. We had a massive brush pile in the yard, about, I don't know, 25 feet high and maybe about 20 feet long. And so I got to light that thing up like a real man would, set it on fire. And I watched as cars driving by our little county road would stop and gawk at the massive blaze that I had going. And I walked in
all of a flame.
At least probably 30, 40 feet, I imagine. And I think I'm in good grace with the DNR after that, because there was still plenty of snow cover around that thing. But, it's nothing like your wife to bring you back down to reality. It's like I came into the house mighty proud of the blaze I had just set aflame. But everything went through safe and sound. We got the burn pile down, had some fun with the chainsaw afterwards, cutting up the remnants. So I felt like a real Northwoods man after all that. So,
natural fire, or were you giving it some steroid type?
We added a little steroid to it. Yeah, a little gasoline smelling steroid to it. So I cheated a little bit, but it was still a lot of fun. Made me feel good to see the neighbors driving by and stop and look at the massive fire that I had set. But
no calls, no purple smoke. It was
no, the sheriff didn't show up, so I must have been okay. They must know I'm experienced at lighting things ablaze out in the middle of the woods. So yeah, but we might as well dig in here on today's episode. As Johnny, as you said, we got a special guest here today. And one of the reasons that I wanted to bring Dr. Berry on was because of the unique nature of his job. So one of my favorite books growing up was by an author named James Herriot, and he's most famous for a book called All Creatures Great and Small. And so the backstory on that is James Herriot is a pseudonym for a veterinarian actually named James White, who worked in the Yorkshire region of England, anywhere from like the early 1900s to around the time of World War II. So 1900s through the 1950s per se. He actually didn't die until I think the 90s. The guy lived a long time and practiced for a long time in England. But of course, like I said, he's most famous for writing the book All Creatures Great and Small, where he describes life as a all species veterinarian and in the countryside of England. So the rural part of England, just like we live in the rural part of America here in Wisconsin. And so part of the reason I want to get Todd on was because I know Todd was heavily influenced by the James Herriot books. Part of the reason you became a veterinarian, Todd, and the way I think of it is Todd is kind of the last of a dying breed of veterinarians, in our neck of the woods, but certainly you don't see a lot of guys like him in the major cities, and there's just not a lot of people that do it all anymore. And I think it'll be cool to kind of talk about his history, how he became a veterinarian, talk a little bit about how he grew up, and then share it with our community. Johnny, what do you think of that, sir?
I'm not that interested.
You're not that interested.
I'm really
Todd's
not.
a boring guy, or
unless he makes up some good stories, I'll just nod and smile. And no, I'm looking forward to it because, well, let's just start. Where did you come from right off the bat? Where's the origin of Todd Berry?
Tell us the origin story, Todd.
Well, thanks for that great introduction. A lot to live up to.
Yeah.
I grew up in Alabama.
Born when? Start right from the beginning, man. Right from the beginning. We're digging deep today.
Born in New Orleans, Louisiana.
Okay, so there, right away, man.
In August of 1970.
Okay. So
they have back then, these unwed mothers or young girls who became pregnant. Some of them got sent off to these homes.
Okay.
I was born in a Baptist home down there.
Okay.
And then I was adopted through them, and parents adopted me.
So it was like a church-related, I don't want to use the term orphanage, but something similar?
Correct.
Okay.
Sellers Baptist home.
Okay. So mother was pregnant like as a teenager or something?
Yeah, I believe she was a junior.
Okay.
And from my understanding, that place, actually, they had a fire. A lot of records were lost, and I have no idea if there's any way I could ever contact whoever may be there.
So do you have any information on your biological mother then? Did you ever get a name or anything of that?
No,
never that far. You just know location, a little bit of backstory.
Yeah.
Okay.
And apparently no health problems, which, at 54.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah.
So yeah, no baldness, no heart disease.
Okay. So Louisiana, New Orleans, Louisiana, 1970.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then in about 6 weeks, my parents that adopted me got to come down. It was already in the process before I was even born.
Okay.
And so they got to come get me, and my first ride was in a taxi and then an airplane, and then moved to a little town in Decatur, Alabama. I was pretty much there maybe a year. Then we moved to, not sure if it was Scottsboro next. There's about 13 places I lived.
Small towns?
About 17 years. Yeah,
okay.
Some are a little bigger than others, but all rural.
Okay.
We're never in city so much.
Why so many moves?
My dad started working for the Soil Conservation Service. Now it's called the NRCS, a four-letter word, as he says. But and every move kind of came with the job promotion.
Oh, sure, makes sense.
Yeah, we moved up from the trailer to an actual house.
All right, that's good. Tornado proof. Yeah.
About 5 years old.
Okay.
Yeah, brick houses. That's
sure
what's down there.
So you kind of cover almost every angle of Alabama. What did you say?
North
13 moves in 17,
and in about 20 years. But eastern parts were kind of my high school career.
Well, tell us about your childhood. Like, what kind of things were you into? Were you into sports? Were you into games, reading, military, karate? What kind of kid were you? Race cars?
Military.
Yeah.
No, not really race cars.
Yeah.
We loved Auburn football.
Okay. All right. So sports. Yeah.
He was a graduate at Auburn University.
Okay.
And so get season tickets, and so we'd go to a couple games every year.
Yeah.
No matter where we lived. Then visiting our grandparents, which was in northern Alabama, and uncles and aunts and other cousins and family. A lot of them stayed up in that area.
What kind of things were you into as a kid outside of Auburn football?
Yeah, it's tough.
Creating trouble. Yeah. Getting into trouble. Yeah.
Was it too hot to do anything?
It was pretty warm.
Yeah. So went to elementary school, high school. Fast forward high school for Todd Berry in Alabama. Where'd you go to high school? What kind of things were you involved with in high school?
Oxford High School.
Okay.
A lot of academics. Didn't really play anything professionally or high school related until
Sure.
soccer.
Okay.
And that was our junior year. And also dabbled with track, like cross country, but I never really competed. Then I wound up going into soccer. And other than that, I mean, just typical riding your bicycle before you
Yeah.
could drive, like
Yeah.
go across town to visit your buddies and play backyard football.
Well, so dabbled in sports, but you grew up in the 80s primarily,
Yes.
right? So you had a Camaro and a leather jacket and listened to Whitesnake or how
Members only jacket.
Members only jacket.
Yeah.
Yes. Actually, might not have been till later. It's probably not that I wasn't that cool.
Yeah.
But I did have one of the Don Johnsons.
There we go. Okay.
Yeah,
So represented that way. All right. All right.
Um,
Did that go well in Alabama?
oh yeah.
Yeah.
That look went well everywhere.
Yeah, that went well
Universal.
anywhere. So were you an exceptional student? Obviously, you had to do good eventually academically to
I
do what you've done, but
yeah,
yeah.
like my sister likes to say, I had all the good teachers.
Brothers, sisters,
Just one sister,
older, younger?
younger by 10 months.
Okay.
Oh, nice and close.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys get along?
Eh,
Yeah.
she'd want to watch
Yeah.
was that the Smurfs? I was more of a Scooby Doo person.
Oh, yeah, me too. Yeah. What was that? Yeah, that's good. So you graduated high school then when? Like, what, 87, 88? Okay. Okay.
And I
And
went right to Auburn.
right to Auburn.
I
Okay.
told Dad I was going to go roof houses in Atlanta with my buddy.
Okay.
He's like, "No, you're
Yeah, you're going to school. You're going to school. It sounds like you had a good dad.
not."
Yeah. Tell us about life at Auburn.
How far away did you have to travel from home to go to Auburn?
Hour and a half.
It's not that bad.
Oh, that's right. You were talking about cars here.
Yeah.
So, I was always one of those little different when it came to stuff. I like to be different. So
Yeah.
my first car was a Renault
Okay.
Alliance. It was a POS.
Yeah.
And 3 starters. I did learn how to work on stuff, having stuff like that.
Having a car that was broke down all the time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You adapted?
Yeah, I adapted.
Okay.
But yeah, so Auburn though, I had that, and I had a 1974 or 5 R756 BMW motorcycle.
Okay.
And
All right.
Renegade.
Yeah.
yeah, just had no
All right, so
experience.
now
I
it's
showed up with that one day,
Okay.
and my dad's like,
How long was your hair?
it's about the same, maybe a
Okay.
little longer. Yeah,
All right.
I didn't tie it back then. It was always just locks. And yeah,
Let the wind flow,
oh yeah,
as
yeah.
they say, right?
My hair started growing, I guess, when I let it grow. Probably a junior. Got my ear pierced as a senior.
In college?
Oh, in high school.
In high school. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was
You were
one
ahead of
those
the
things,
game.
I was really too young to do it.
Yeah.
Left ear?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Always
yeah.
a left. Yeah. That was then. Still is. Yeah.
Thought so.
Well, tell us about life at Auburn then.
Oh, Auburn was great. I was responsible, but I never drank and never stayed out too late. I worked a lot. I had a school job, through that was kind of like your student loans, or not. It wasn't a loan. It was just
It's a way to finance your education.
Yeah.
Sure.
And then I wound up working third shift at a plant, Diversified Products, building gym equipment,
Okay.
just because I liked money.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Nothing
Which
wrong
was
with that.
another story. My, turning 16 or so, and parents were like, don't you think you should start looking for a job?
Yeah.
Well, I didn't like being told what to do. It doesn't mean I wouldn't do it. So I went out behind their backs and got a job at the skating rink. But I didn't tell anybody I was working.
Sure.
I had my own card.
Yeah.
And I could, as
Keep
long
the
as I
cash
could,
to yourself.
yeah, pay for cash or pay for gas. Yeah, it wasn't any big deal until they're like, where are you getting your money?
Yeah. So did you continue soccer at Auburn or?
No, Auburn moved on to
Yeah.
volleyball. We always
Okay.
did that, like in church league,
Yeah.
softball, of course. So I did a lot of intramurals at Auburn.
Yeah. So what'd you study there at Auburn?
Russian.
Right. This gets more interesting. Yeah.
We had to take Spanish in high
Okay.
school. That was all that was offered.
Yeah.
You kind of had to. But I really didn't learn a thing.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I don't mind pursuing. I just want to do something different, right?
Sure. Yeah.
That's the car. And so yeah, I picked Russian for that, and I enjoyed it.
Okay.
I learned to read and write very well. Couldn't hardly speak a word though,
Yeah.
or hear it. It was pretty tough.
Sure.
And of course, a lot of that, then you came with a lot of the history and even took
Yeah.
like a cinema course
Okay.
too. And so, yeah.
So Russian literature at all?
Yeah.
Yeah, a little Tolstoy,
Yeah.
Dostoevsky. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. All right. All right.
Yeah.
And so somewhere along the way, though, you must have given up the Russian, right?
I actually know I can continue that up to UMD.
Did you really?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So did you get any kind of a degree in Russian then, or
No,
no? Okay.
I
But you
did
stuck
not.
with it. Yeah.
Yeah, I stuck with it.
Okay.
Did about 4 years total.
So what was your major though?
I didn't have.
Didn't have one.
So that's one reason I left Auburn.
Okay.
After 2 years,
Yeah.
they make you declare.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I couldn't be general liberal arts anymore.
Sure.
Now there was no basket weaving really at
Yeah.
school, but I did take swimming. I took track. I took some fun courses. I took jazz piano, and
So how many years total were you at Auburn?
just two.
Just two. Okay. So then where does life take you after Auburn?
One Sunday morning,
Yeah.
after waking up from a night of Grandpa Two Fingers tequila,
Okay. All right.
me and my roommate.
All right. Now we're
decided-
getting somewhere.
Yeah,
Yeah.
me and my roommate decided, hey, but he's like, I'm going to join the Marines,
All
the
right.
reserves. I said, oh, good for you. So you know what? I'm going to join the Coast Guard. Well,
Because that's a decision you just make lightly,
yeah.
After some two-finger tequila.
I'll show you.
Let's just make a life decision
But
here.
I'm ready. I was ready to move on.
That's a
Yeah.
good moonshine name right there.
Yeah.
I didn't have a goal. I mean, I knew I'd come back to school.
Yep.
I didn't know what I wanted to do yet.
You needed some direction.
I needed some direction.
Okay. Okay.
And so I'm still working third shift at this plant.
Yep.
And I'm like, I don't even know where a recruiter is.
Yep.
So I wound up one night working the third shift. One of the ladies, she's like, there's a recruiter in Birmingham. There's Mobile. I said, oh, okay. So I drove up to Birmingham. I had to take the ASVAB again.
Okay.
Because when I took it in high school, I was really, I would wear paisley shirts, had the earring, hair was a little longer. I was not the military guy.
Well, yeah, I can picture that. Yeah.
So I took the ASVAB.
Yeah.
I drew a Christmas tree pattern. It was just,
Oh, sure. Yeah.
ABCD kind of thing. So
Yeah.
I made mine pretty.
So you guessed. Yeah.
I didn't read anything. I just did a decorative
Yeah.
thing and turned it in. I still got called by the Army.
All right. So did something prompt your interest in the Coast Guard growing up? Like, were you a seafaring lad as a youngster? What?
No,
Or was it just
I like
I need some
fishing.
direction? I like the idea of a boat in the ocean. Let's go.
right. That's
Yeah.
pretty much that was it.
Okay.
Just out of the blue.
Okay.
No, no background. Fish. I've been in lakes,
Yep.
rarely on it, mostly from shores with my
Yeah.
fishing, and then maybe rivers. But yeah, I didn't really have any experience on a boat. We'll come back to that.
Okay. Okay. So sign up for the Coast Guard. They accept you.
Yeah.
And where do you go from there? Where does your life turn then from there?
Well, Cape May, New Jersey was boot camp.
Okay.
It was like 8 weeks. It wasn't physically as intense as I wanted it to be.
Okay.
Maybe I was a little disappointed in that, but I mean, I was real fit back then
Sure.
too.
Yeah.
And then mentally, I excelled at everything there. History, you take some tests and you got to learn code of conduct and just all sorts of little things about the service.
So you see plenty of videos on YouTube or documentaries that like to talk about Army boot camp or Marine boot camp, but you don't see much about, Coast Guard or like even the Air Force for that matter. But Coast Guard boot camp, what kind of things are you doing there? What does a day at Coast Guard boot camp look like?
Oh, I imagine it's similar to the others.
Yeah.
Wake me up.
PT, mainly PT
Yeah,
discipline.
PT, we got those old M4 rifles with wood
Okay.
and stock, hold them above your head, and you march around for 30 minutes.
Okay.
Running, and I mean, we did all that. We shot handguns, 9mm, shot rifles.
So really probably not very much different than any of the other branches.
No, it's probably maybe how much time you spent doing
Sure.
those things.
Yeah.
And there was, looking for dust bunnies, which of course you're crawling around on the floor.
Yep.
Swabbing the deck.
Yeah.
Or
Sure.
you're swimming the quarter deck is what you're doing. And then you're just kind of, you got to have your clothes all ironed. So yeah, as far as like learning how to sew and iron, and make a bed and square it away, and you learn all those things. And and you learn how to take care of the ones who can't.
Sure.
Otherwise, you all get punished.
Yeah. Yeah. Team thing, right?
Yeah. There's a lot
Do
of,
away
lot
with
of
the
team
individual.
building.
Yeah.
Not so much individual,
Yeah.
but a lot of team building.
And that was 8 weeks?
That was 8 weeks.
Okay. So 8 weeks of boot camp. What happens next?
I got to come home and work with my recruiter, going to like local high schools around Birmingham there, which I lived about an hour away.
Okay.
And I forgot to tell you what I did with my signing bonus.
All right.
66 Mustang.
Okay.
Oh,
all right.
the car upgrade.
Yeah.
What color?
Red.
Okay.
Stripe?
Oh no, it was like fire engine red.
Okay.
Ooh.
It had taken third place on a show somewhere earlier.
And so how old were you at this time?
I was probably 20.
It seems like a very 20-year-old thing to do. You get that bonus, new car. Yeah. Not only new car, but Mustang.
Oh, I had Mustang too.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's one of those where you would actually run out of gas before you're empty, like at around that
Sure.
quarters. That happened a few times. Every time I came back, because I'd have to fix it. I had to put new plug wires in one time. The brakes, the drum brakes were seized up. I had to replace them. So I learned to work on that too.
So the old POS served its purpose a little bit.
A little bit,
You're kind of at least accustomed to get underneath the underbelly of a car, at least by that.
And it helps that my dad his dad was a
Car guy
at a shop,
Okay.
a gas station, I guess, where they did everything. So I learned a lot from him.
So boot camp, first job they give you, something super exciting. You're going around helping recruit. What happens after that?
A school. So
Okay.
my next stop is Yorktown, Virginia.
Okay.
A lot of history there from the Civil War.
Yeah,
and such like
imagine
that,
so.
or the even
Revolutionary War.
Revolutionary War.
Yeah.
So that was interesting. And I was there for, I think that might have been 3 months.
Okay.
Because that's where you're kind of thinking ahead. When did I actually report to Duluth, Minnesota?
So in Yorktown, on land, on a ship, what does that look like?
So I decided to go quartermaster, which in the naval and Coast Guard services is navigating, and then signaling was part of my job too. So a lot of that was actually to learn signaling, like flashing light and flag hoist, semaphore.
Yeah.
Because that actually took.
Yeah, because this is probably pre-GPS.
It is.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, had a great time there. Did well, and got to pretty much choose where I wanted to go when I left of what was open.
Yep.
There were a few billets that actually wanted. So most people in the Coast Guard will go to a billet first, like a boat or a small boat station or an MSO as a seaman or a fireman, and they'll do 2 to 3 years until they kind of decide what they want to do.
Sure.
Well, I kind of already figured that I wanted to go on a boat.
Yeah.
I didn't want to go on a small boat.
Sure. You wanted a little adventure.
I wanted a little adventure. Yeah. Go into different ports, that kind of thing. And so I just went right ahead to my rating. It was open. I took it. I was looking at advancement.
Yep.
And wound up choosing Duluth, Minnesota.
All right.
One night at Auburn, me and a buddy from England, we were smoking cigars and maybe having a few beers. And we learned all the words to the Requiem of Fitzgerald.
Okay. Yeah. Now we're talking.
So that's my background while I'm picking Duluth, Minnesota on Lake Superior.
Gordon Lightfoot.
So I report up to Duluth, and this is also another thing. So my buddy went in the Marine Reserves, and he winds up going to the Gulf War.
Okay.
Pretty much,
I suppose. That's right around that timeline. Yeah.
It was a reservist war.
Yeah.
I mean, hardly anybody active duty went.
Okay.
So we're all like stoked.
Yeah.
Because it started after I went too.
Sure.
And we all wanted to go, of course. But in the Coast Guard, they were really only taking port security, which is a reservist position.
Yep.
And they were taking instructors to train the Navy crewmen and Marines on boarding parties. On the naval ships that were already there. So they might have sent a few cutters over there to maybe help with the blockade, but for the most part, we were kind of out of it.
You were out of it. Yeah.
And but we all wanted to go. We were all stoked. And
so you grew up in Alabama, and you end up in cold Duluth, Minnesota, on Lake Superior.
I chose it. I wanted to come.
Yeah. So what was life like on the Great Lakes?
It was cold.
Yeah, I imagine so. Yeah.
I had to learn to dress.
Yeah. Any cold water training?
Just jumping in.
Yeah.
Just jumping in the water.
See how long you could tolerate it. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
with the Gumby suit. So
Sure.
you're actually so the Gumby suit lets water in,
Okay.
and then it uses your body temperature to warm it, and it
Okay.
kind of insulates.
I see.
So
Makes sense.
so it was effective.
Okay.
But yeah, that first jump in kind of takes your breath away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, for a guy like me, I grew up in Duluth, Minnesota, and you hear about Coast Guard activity there. I think everybody who's probably grown up around Duluth hears about the Coast Guard cutter Sundew, right? Am I pronouncing that right? Yeah. So you grow up hearing about that. So what does the Coast Guard crew at the Port of Duluth do?
We break ice in the wintertime,
all right,
in the spring,
open up shipping
in
lanes.
the fall.
Yeah.
In the fall.
Opening up shipping lanes and then helping any ships that are in distress.
Oh, yeah, well, there wasn't a lot of that, but we didn't really have anything to do with that. So our main job was to put the buoys in the spring and take them out in the fall because Lake Superior can freeze over entirely. Not that it does most years, but that ice, most of the buoys, of course, are set in harbors or along hazards near shore. So they get pretty bashed up if you leave them out. So we would take the expensive buoys and we'd store them on shore somewhere, and then we would mark the position because they were on charts. And this is how we marked buoys. We did not have GPS. We had sextants. So we're talking like shooting the sun and the moon and the stars. Now you really need to be at sea level to do that accurately.
Sure.
But there we used it to like fix positions on land at the Army Corps of Engineer. There might be a cupola, which is a spire, or there might be a stack from a factory. And all these are positioned by the Army Corps of Engineers on our charts. And we can get angles from those. And we'd have to take pretty much at least 3 different sets of angles. And we would mark them all at the same time. We'd read them out to like the ensign or whoever's standing on the flying bridge and or on the wing. And he would plot the position. And then we'd maneuver the boat, or just to say, okay, we set it, and we knew the distance from where he was standing to where we set whatever side we were setting the buoy on, and then we would record that, and we would we'd update the chart.
So you do all that in just 30 years' time, and now all of that kind of stuff is replaced by devices like the one in your hand.
It is.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Some of the charts we had were from 1902.
Wow.
And so even like we had Loran back then. Yeah. So Loran is a radio signal that pretty much all around the world, but you wouldn't want to navigate by it, let's say, because you could be a couple miles off in certain spots. And especially, so when I say 1902 datum, that means that in 1902, they picked a spot in the world and they expanded it.
Sure.
And made all the charts for one position. And so some of the places in the Great Lakes hadn't been updated since 1902.
Oh, man.
And while some of them might have been 1980 something.
Sure.
But our charts were fairly old. Doesn't mean that they were physically old. They were just made a long time ago and just recopied.
So primary duties, you're there if people need you. Primarily duties managing the shipping lanes, though. Did you ever deal with any shipping accidents or anything like that?
Underground pirating scene?
No, none of that.
Yeah.
That's pretty boring.
So spend some time. How many years in Duluth then? In the Coast Guard, I guess.
So I made E6. So every 6 months I got promoted.
Okay.
So I went in as an E2 because I had my little bit of college. Okay. So I made E6 in like 2 years and 10 months and maybe a few days.
So you were in for a few years and stationed up in Duluth there then?
About 2.
Oh, 2. Okay.
Yeah. So that was all active duty.
Okay. And then ultimately something prompts you, I want to go back to school now and make something of myself academically
again.
In
1992, I had an opportunity to serve on the Coast Guard Bark Eagle.
Okay.
3 masts, 22 cells. It's out of the academy.
Oh, cool. All right.
Not Yorktown, but Connecticut there, where Yukon is. How am I drawing a blank?
Sure.
Bristol.
No,
that's ESPN.
We're across from Groton. Groton's where the sub base is, and naval
Okay.
sub base.
You're on the coast of Connecticut, though, in a really cool ship.
And a really, yep.
Okay.
It was a World War II prize from Germany.
Oh, wow.
It used to be
Okay.
called the Gorschbach. And I believe.
Do we have to bleep that out?
Oh,
New London, Connecticut.
Okay.
That's
All
what it
right.
is.
Okay.
And so that was my first time being in the east,
Okay.
the Northeast. And I tell you what, it's beautiful. Really cool places just to go, and nature. I mean,
Yeah.
But me being from Duluth, I reported there in like April, I think. This would have been 92. And so I was going temporary duty. And my job there was, to help the quartermasters are needed on these larger boats. So the boat is just there in port most of the year. They only get underway really in the summertime to train cadets. So this was 1992, the 500th anniversary of the discovery of America. So we had quite the plan. We went down to the Caribbean. We met the first group coming over from Spain of tall ships. So we had this whole thing planned at different ports.
I see. So kind of recreation here.
Just all these tall ships.
Yeah.
It was a regatta.
So basically, he's Jack Sparrow by now.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't go there.
No.
No earring at this point.
Okay. Rum?
No rum here.
Was there rum?
Oh, that's another thing. There was.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Now we're
bring
talking.
back cases of rum.
Okay. All right. So you were Jack Sparrow. Yeah.
You had to store that.
Okay. Did you ever raid and pillage?
Ooh, nothing illegal.
Oh, okay. Yeah. All right. Yeah.
It's kind of what happens when you pull into port after being out at sea for a couple of weeks.
So you make your trip through the Caribbean, back up the coast. Man, that really is a young man's adventure right there. So what happens next? How do you end up back in school? Back in college?
So on board that ship that summer, I read a James Herriot book.
Okay, all right, that's where I was kind of taking this. Yeah,
it was all things great and small,
or all creatures great.
All creatures great and small.
Okay,
yeah, there was. I read them all.
Yeah,
that was probably
that's the most popular one. Everybody knows. Yeah,
and it just hit me. I want to be a veterinarian. I had one more year of active duty, and then I had to decide.
Yep.
So I come back to Duluth in like September from that trip, and I decided I was going to get out.
UMD.
Enrolled at UMD.
And at that point, you're majoring in biology or some other animal science or something.
Really not majoring.
Not majoring in anything. Just getting the pre-vet requisites.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's back up for just a sec though. The James Herriot thing, because that's kind of the premise of how we started out. The show. So tell me what was it about the James Herriot books that kind of attracted you then to want to be a veterinarian? Was it always the large animal thing, the notion of helping in the countryside and being part of the fabric of a rural community? What was it about the James Herriot novels that
you're right there? The rural community, and helping.
Yeah.
And like I said, I always knew I'd go back to school.
Yeah.
And I always thought, medical or even law. I wasn't sure at all. Didn't have a clue. But I like people.
Yeah.
But I didn't really want to work on people.
Yeah. Yeah.
I had no veterinary experience in the past.
Sure. Didn't grow up on a farm or anything like that.
I had dogs, aunt and uncle. I remember bottle feeding a beef calf that his mom died giving birth. So,
But it wasn't part of the fabric of you growing up or anything like that. So the books really had a profound effect on.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And my dad, working with erosion control and helping these farmers out, and they would invite us to come out and dove shoots.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
So I got to meet farmers and at least crop farmers.
Okay.
And I'm like, these are good people.
Yeah.
And they need help. And so that had something to do with it. And then just like not living in the city.
Yeah.
Living more out in the country.
Yeah. And so you kind of at that time then you had it in your mind. Essentially I want to be like James Herriot. I want to take on that role.
Do a little bit of everything.
So, but ultimately you get accepted in a veterinary school at the University of Minnesota. Yeah. And so you make the transition. You're still serving as a reservist at that time?
As a reservist,
okay.
Yes.
So tell us about the vet school years then. Here you've made the choice, you're committed, you're going to be James Herriot. What's vet school like?
It's different now. Yeah. I'm sure you went through it, whereas maybe a little more case study involved or maybe a little more hands-on right away.
Sure.
Ours was classes. I'm interested.
Yeah.
This is what I want to do.
Yeah.
And even the boringest class was probably embryology, but
Yeah.
I still don't know how I passed because that was right after lunch.
Sure. Yeah. I get
But
that.
I did.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's all interesting.
You see it as the means to the end. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
And
Better man than I. I was like chewing gravel for my first year and a half of veterinary school, man. Yeah.
Questioning everything.
Yeah.
no, I was excited.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
Okay. So you obviously are kind of a non-traditional student. You just served your country. You're coming back to vet school. Do people that you're going to school with, are they aware of that?
Yeah, there
Eh,
actually, I can't think if there was anybody else that was prior service in my
Yep.
class, but I think that honestly helped me get in the
Yep.
first time
Yeah.
without any experience.
Right.
Granted, I did have the grades by this point.
Yep.
When I went to UMD,
But you were well-rounded, so that probably helped the application process.
yeah, but I was so worried because I had zero experience,
Yeah.
other than a couple of pets who I'd never seen one neutered.
Yeah. Your experience was in the novels.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
So it's like, how do you know you want to do this? And I went in not knowing, do I want to do zoo? Do I want to do small animal? Do I want to do large?
Sure.
I just kind of wanted to do it all,
Yeah.
or at
Yeah.
least experience it all.
Yeah.
And yeah, and it felt like right away in my freshman year, I got to experience a little bit of the zoo stuff at Como Zoo there.
Yeah. I did the
Como
same
Zoo.
thing. Yeah.
I did not want to do that.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
No, though I have in the past. I've worked
Yeah.
at Marshfield Zoo. I've worked even that little one they had at Chippewa there.
Oh, sure.
Been
Yeah.
down there.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a park. I forget
Yeah,
what it's called.
Irvine
but-
Park.
Yeah. Yep.
What was that experience like?
The
Como Zoo.
So we were there with my advisor. They broke us up in
Yeah.
advisory groups, and he was their zoo vet.
Yep.
And he got called one morning as we're showing up like early before class, like around 7, to recheck an orangutan.
Oh, yeah.
So we go down below. We walk. He asked if we wanted to go, and we're all like, "Yeah,
Yeah.
gung ho. Let's go see this."
Yeah.
So unfortunately, we're wearing these stupid lab coats, and white.
Yeah.
We're slacks and stuff. We're kind of dressed to be professional. And we go there, and we're not looking at what you see when you go there, animals in a habitat.
Yep.
We go down below, stainless steel cages.
Where it's not as pretty.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, it was clean. Don't get me
Yeah.
wrong. It was
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
filthy by any means.
Yeah.
But it was just easy, something to hose down.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, walk in single file. Don't let them touch you.
Yeah.
And they're really strong.
Yeah.
And they may, if they get agitated, they can like maybe throw feces and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So
Johnny does that too sometimes.
So we're walking single file. We open the door, and as soon as we start walking in, a couple of us, the first one on the left just kind of does this body slam against the stainless steel wall and makes this is a big boom.
Yeah.
We're already nervous. So
Yeah.
it
Shakes
scares the crap
everybody.
out of us. Yeah. But that was really the only time.
Yeah.
And then the rest of them are like putting their hands through the bars and
Oh, yeah.
where they through the meat
Yeah.
troughs.
Yeah.
And then they're like waving at you,
Cue the Sarah McLachlan music and the ASPCA commercial here. Yeah.
Then clang, clang, clang.
And the one we're there to observe is at the very end. And he, I don't know, must have darted him or sedated him the last time he was there. And it was just more of a checkup just to see how he was coming along. I never really heard if it was like respiratory or whatnot.
Yeah.
But this animal was cowering in the corner.
Oh man. Yeah.
And staring at us.
Yeah.
Like with hate.
Yeah.
You could feel it.
It's got like human characteristics.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And,
Oh man.
that was
Yeah.
it. I'm
Yeah.
like, nope.
No, not for me. Yeah. I would think I would the same way. Yeah. That would be hard.
Like I said, since then, I've worked a lot with wildlife, like deer, wolves, bear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But with the great apes or monkeys, too close to home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not for me.
Yeah. So ultimately, you choose to do mixed animal, though. You're going to do everything.
Yep.
So you go vet school must go okay for you. You get through 4 years of it.
Yes.
Yeah. Pass your boards, ready to rock and roll. And your first gig is where?
Well, I passed the boards and I went and got a tattoo.
Okay, all right. So yeah.
Something
like an orangutan.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I wanted an anchor for the Coast Guard.
Okay. Yeah.
And I put the caduceus around it with a
Okay.
stuff. So,
Sure.
but I didn't get it until I passed the board. So
All
I
right.
did write, first
Yeah.
round, but
Yeah.
yeah.
I don't know about you. The board thing, waiting for the board results, hands down the most nerve-wracking moment of my life. I don't how did you feel about that, waiting on that test result?
We took it right before Christmas, so
Okay.
I immediately drove to Alabama,
Yeah.
and I had to be back,
Yeah.
at Christmas break. But I visited people, and came back, and I was on my way back in the snowstorm
Yeah.
when I get a phone call from my roommate. She's like, "You got a letter here,"
Oh boy. Yeah.
and she's like, "You, what do you want to do?" I said, "Open it."
How?
So I said, "Let
Yeah,
me pull
ballsy.
off the road."
Yeah.
So I pulled
Okay.
off the
Yeah.
road. She read it to me. I was accepted.
Yeah.
It was all good.
Yeah. So you pass boards. Now you got to get a job. Now you got to
Yeah.
be James
I
Herriot.
didn't even look for
Yeah.
jobs until I passed the
Yeah.
boards.
Yeah.
And granted, I'm not from here.
Yeah.
I don't have any certain area. I thought I'd probably be staying in Minnesota.
Sure.
But one of my professors, anyway, he was a palpation professor there. There were two, and he was friends with Dan Goller in Cornell,
Okay.
and knew they were looking for somebody. And I was good at palpating, and
Yeah.
not all vets are. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just a skill that
Yeah.
so something I was good at, and
So Johnny, do you know what palpating is?
I was just about to ask.
Okay. All right. So for the lack of a better term, the palpating he's referring to is spending your day shoulder deep in a cow's rear end.
and
The long gloves.
Everybody's
Yep,
dream, man.
the long gloves.
Every city and suburban kid's dream.
Oh, goodness gracious.
No, man. Okay, so you're good at palpating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and that's what we did over there.
Okay.
So when
Well, don't they always say, hey, if you don't want the job, don't be good at it.
Yeah. Yeah. So if anybody needs a prostate exam, we can do them free here. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
came out to visit Cornell. And have you seen their building? We're talking stone
Okay.
and then wood
Yep.
and James Herriot. I mean, it's all coming back.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then what do? They do
Yeah.
dairy. That's
Yeah.
predominantly, and then that's what most people come to do.
Yeah.
But there's also horses, sheep, goat, pigs. I mean, there's everything there to do.
In rural America.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, it's not the Yorkshires of England, but it's rural America. There's not much here.
And they were more than happy for me to take the horse work,
Yeah.
the pig work, the sow work.
Yeah.
I mean, the sheep and goats, and and even llamas and alpacas, and
Yeah.
so
So do you ever think about the fact, I was thinking about this the other day, so that, I mean, I knew that was one of your influences, and that's part of the reason why I wanted to talk about it. But do you, like, even down to the fact, I mean, James Herriot, James White, the real guy behind the books, went to veterinary school, but also served his country, right? And then moved to the rural countryside and did it all. Do you ever think about, I mean, intentional or not, that your life has kind of reflected that in a lot of ways?
no.
Okay.
I'll tell you
Yeah.
who often Jimmy Buffett.
Okay.
He was
That's a turn. That's definitely that's a sharp right angle from James Herriot. Yeah.
And I really enjoyed being at sea.
Yep.
And I hope to further that.
Yeah.
Doing some sailboat cruising, or maybe not around the world, but around.
Yeah.
Finding Margaritaville.
Yeah. And then and I've always loved music. That's always been.
Sure.
Even though I grew up in the 80s, you're around the 80s music until all the hair bands, Bon Jovi and such. Those were great. But the 70s, the 60s and 70s was the stuff that I really dug.
Okay.
Hence the piercing, the long hair, and the
that's
dazed and confused.
So Jimmy Buffett in the off season, James Herriot when it's career time.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're in Cornell. So tell us about, because I think about when I just started out, and I did some large animal here when I just started out practicing, and going to local farms and stuff like that, where things aren't as controlled as when you're safe at the University of Minnesota and you've got an expert looking over your shoulder, making sure you don't kill anything. So you got any stories, anything that sticks out that you remember of your first couple of years practicing here in the American version of the Yorkshire region?
I do.
Yeah.
Nothing's coming to mind at the moment. I just really remember that have you ever pilled a cow? Like you gave it a magnet or some aspirin or something like that? holding that cow around the neck,
Yeah.
and then putting that ball and gun in there and then giving them pills. And you got like a 1,500-pound dairy cow or something, and you're manhandling.
Yeah.
That feels good.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
We worked on a lot of feet. That's not fun at all. But
yeah.
I mean,
That's dirty.
it was a very physical job.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even tying the cows up. I mean, sometimes the farmers just leave a note above them. So you're doing all this by yourself. And I wasn't a big guy.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I'm about 40 pounds heavier than I used to.
Than you used to be. Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah. And even the palpating. I mean, at that time we didn't even have ultrasound, so we were palpating by hand.
Yeah.
And then we moved on to ultrasound when it became available, and I was really good at that too, determining sex and twins and such.
See, tougher man than I. See, I remember when I started out practicing up here, and I was working, for my previous employer, and he was a large animal guy through and through, and I remember going out to a local farm and palpating. And so I'm just learning at the time. So my job is to go behind him, and he's kind of testing me as we go. Was that one pregnant? Was that one not pregnant? What do you think? And so we spend like 2 hours. It's like 20 degrees in this barn. I'm covered. And that's my job for the next 2 hours, is follow him as he's, was that one?
One after
the other. And I got done at the end of that 90 minutes or 2 hours or whatever that was. And I said, you know what type of vet I don't want to be?
And now
James Herriot doesn't look so fun anymore, man. Yeah.
Fraud.
Those collapses in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
20 below, or maybe not that cold, but they normally, at least the dairy cows were normally in a barn.
Yeah.
Now I go to places on beef, and it's like sometimes they're out in the pasture. You tie them to a tree.
Yeah.
I do remember this one time. I called out for beef, prolapsed in the middle of the night. Get out there, using our truck lights. The herd's kind of flocking around. Cows overall, they're inquisitive.
Yeah.
They're herd animals, and most of them are friendly.
Yeah.
So you pull in with the truck, they all come up. They probably think they're getting fed or something. Mm-hmm. Well, this one is a young heifer, prolapsed uterus. She's laying there on the ground. And so I'm like, okay, just got my halter on the back of the truck. I'm just going to tie it off to the deer guard in the front, whatever, brush guard, and put the halter on her. And she kind of starts getting up and kind of coming at me, but I didn't really think she was coming at me. So she's putting her head through the noose, or through the halter, not a noose. And sure enough, she's kind of starts building up speed, and she's charging me. Well, I'm just happen to be near the back of my truck, so I just step out to the side. And she's actually at this point, she's starting to like jump up and kick like both back legs and stuff like that. Pretty wild.
With the uterus hanging out.
Not for long.
Okay, good.
So the cow goes one way off in the darkness, because I never got the halter secured.
Yeah.
And the uterus went the other. So uterus went one way, the cow went another.
Oh boy.
And they're like, well, you might want to butcher.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
I said, it's middle of the night, or tomorrow. She's still alive. So, stretching arteries and veins and stuff really helps with the bleeding.
Yeah.
Snapping like that.
Yeah. So it didn't bleed that much.
I don't know.
Okay. Hard to say in the dark.
It's hard to say. Yeah. But there was nothing obvious, but they all bleed internally when something like that happens. Now there have been times where I've actually amputated the uterus, but there we're using calicrate banders with,
But the animal didn't die instantly or anything.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
No.
So for for people that are not familiar with what he's talking about, so and any ladies out here that would be listening, imagine you traveling one way at a fast rate of speed and your reproductive tract exiting your body and going the other direction. And it survived for a period of time.
For a period of time, yeah.
Wow. Animals are resilient.
I think they might have went on to because she's obviously no good for reproduction anymore.
Yeah.
There's no fixing that.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And I've had to, even sometimes when they do prolapse and they tear or something like that. When they tear something like that, that way, they bleed out quick. You're right.
Sure.
So within a matter of minutes.
Yeah.
Sometimes you get there.
But the act of stretching kind of stemmed that bleeding a little bit, and just it allowed it to go for a little while.
Yeah.
Wow. So that's how you start out.
I never saw her again.
Yeah. So stuff like that. Any major, all of us, we've got our stories. We've screwed up. You're not supposed to talk about that, but it is veterinary practice, right?
Yeah.
Any mistakes when you were young, just starting out?
Well, I don't know that it was a mistake.
Yeah.
It just happened. It was bad.
Yeah.
The draft horse
Yeah.
castrating
Yeah.
routine.
Yeah.
I'm done.
Yeah.
Stands up, intestines come through.
Oh,
So,
through the site where you had castrated
yeah.
it. Yeah.
And
So
I
hernia. Yeah.
herniated.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I knock him back down,
Yeah.
or tried to. I had to call for assistance because I ran out of drugs. I tried because what would normally put that horse down at this point wasn't working anymore.
Yeah.
And anyway, got him down, made the incision bigger around the hernia. Lots of lactating ringers, fluids and stuff, cleaning it up and putting it back in, loading them up with antibiotics. And I heard sewed him back up.
Yep.
But the horse never got back up.
Oh,
They had him in a trailer overnight.
Yeah. That's sad.
But was it the amount of drugs I gave him? I mean, it was a lot.
Yeah.
Or was it the actual? You wouldn't think of hernia and putting it back in. You wouldn't think of dying. For me, I think it was drugs.
Yeah.
But I couldn't do it standing. I mean,
Well, that's why they call it veterinary practice. They think we're supposed to know how to fix everything immediately, but sometimes nature does not cooperate, and that's when it stinks because you wanna be able to help every single patient, even with the routine stuff, but sometimes it just does. Nature says otherwise. So start out, you had cases like that, cows, horses, pigs. You're doing pigs too.
very, very,
Very
little.
few,
Most
yeah.
of this fear stuff.
Okay, sure, yeah, and
But
then
I didn't say no.
yeah,
That's the whole thing is.
yeah. But then I'm sure you're treating dogs and cats on the farm. So then are you getting to know local farmers and stuff? You're kind of starting to live out James Herriot's story here a little bit. Yeah.
And we still did small animal services, first come, first see, whatever. We would schedule, 2 or 3 surgeries. So somebody would stay back to clinic. It was pretty much either Jeff or I that would do the small animal in the morning. And we'd stay from 8 to 10 or something like that and take care of everything that was there, do a spay or neuter, and then go out to the farm calls.
So you're at Cornell for a period of time, but you worked kind of all over northwestern or central Wisconsin, right? Other places you've been?
Yeah. From Cornell, I went to Country Doctors. That was with my first marriage.
Yep.
That was in Menominee.
Sure.
I wasn't there very long.
Yeah.
Almost a year, and then I wound up going to Athens, Wisconsin.
Yeah.
It was after the divorce.
Yeah. No, that's understandable. Yeah.
And while over there, I met my wife now.
All right. Amen. Yeah. It's kind of funny because you've kind of spent different spots and all over north central Wisconsin here. Obviously, you and I teamed up in Ridgeland for a while, and then now here in Ladysmith. But you've gotten to know a lot of farmers and a lot of people all over, northwest Wisconsin here. Anything stick out to you, or what's kind of been the best part of being able to spend so much time with different parts of the different communities here in northwest Wisconsin?
It would be the change in the family farm.
Okay.
It's all but gone around here.
Yeah.
And I never thought I would see it though in school. Back in the 90s, they told us that this was going to happen.
Yeah.
That it was going to go the way of swine.
Sure.
And it has.
Industrialized. Yeah.
These large farms.
Yeah.
So the smaller family farm, it's just not there anymore.
So
it probably is still there. It's just not like it used to be, or not as often.
You started practicing around this area then what, like 2000-ish? Okay, so 2000, so just 25 years ago. Because I've heard different takes on this, and just 25 years, what would a day looked like for you 25 years ago, say working in Cornell?
So there were days where I wouldn't even go into the office. I would leave my house in the morning, maybe before sun up, and be at a farm around milking time or whatnot to start palpating cattle, or maybe just to start seeing sick calls. Because I lived about 13.5 miles away from the clinic, so it's about 20 minutes for me to get into town. But if there was something near me, all right, I would just go right there.
Yeah.
And we would cover, I really don't think 30 calls a day is, outrageous.
Yeah. All small farms.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, you would
Small dairy
bring in
herds.
close together.
Yeah.
Might do a foot here, might treat a cow for ketosis there, milk fever, if that's some emergency, you might have to drive a little out of the way to go right there. Otherwise, I tried to line my calls up, where I'm going in kind of in a direction and then I'm coming back.
So, and how many people were practicing with you in Cornell at the time? How many other doctors were there?
Initially, there were uh, Elizabeth Hildebrand was just having her second child, so she was gone, or she was just there as I was just
Part-time,
getting
yeah.
there.
Yeah.
And then so Jeff, it's just Jeff, Avery, and Dan.
Yeah.
So
So 5 of you.
four total.
4 total,
Yeah.
1 part-timer maybe.
Yeah, she was just there a couple of weeks, maybe.
But I guess what I'm kind of getting at is at that time, so just this how agriculture has changed is just 25 years ago, you had essentially like a 4.5 or 4.25 doctor practice.
But then we hired another.
Yeah,
like
so
that winter. So we got
5.
Yeah, we were running with
5 in Cornell, Wisconsin. Population, what, 1,000, 1,200, something like that.
Something like
So 5 doctors in Cornell, Wisconsin, and you guys are busy.
Yes.
And that's just 25 years ago.
We didn't get done at 5.
Yeah.
I mean, we worked until they were done. All the calls were done. We split them up, so north, south, east, west was always good. And then a floater in between to kind of pick up their emergencies.
Yeah.
We were busy.
And so in 25 years time, you had that. And now in the area here, so just expand out from Cornell, is there even 5 guys from here to Eau Claire that are?
No.
Yeah. Yeah. Between all the practices.
Right.
Yeah.
There's Avery. Not sure how much Tech is doing, but I think they're doing some of them.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Julian Lang.
Yeah.
Julian, but
Jurgen. Yeah. Yeah.
And New Auburn.
Yeah.
And up north, you got to go to Hayward.
Yeah. So there's maybe 5 guys doing a wide variety of large animal between Hayward and Eau Claire in just 25 years. It's just incredible, the kind of the direction that culture, has went in the agricultural world. So it's not the same anymore. No.
Now it's horses and occasional beef.
Yeah. Yeah, because the small dairies have consolidated into just a few big dairies.
Yeah.
Some of them are still kind of old school, but most of it's kind of on an industrial scale, would you say?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So the days of James Herriot in Northwest Wisconsin are deteriorating.
Well, so you got your hobby farm.
Yep.
Hobbyist.
Yeah.
And a little frustrating.
Yeah.
But I can't say anything bad. They want you to come out for their goat or sheep, and they pay.
Yeah.
As opposed to, back in the old days, it was like, getting paid
was tougher.
It was nothing that I concerned myself with.
Yep.
But yeah, there's a lot on the books that.
Well, small farms, and those guys are trying to get by, of course. They're doing everything they can to make it work, but they need your help. And so there's a balancing act there. Eventually, everybody pays for the most part, I think, right? Yeah. Yeah. But that's kind of and that's kind of, if you see that in the James Herriot stories and the James Herriot novels, the same thing in England, 75 years ago. They're dealing with the same thing, farmers trying to make a living, and then the veterinarian trying their best to work with them and make a living themselves. So it's one of the things we were talking about is titling this episode. Obviously you're the guest, but the last of the James Herriots, right? A little nod to the Last of the Mohicans, of course, classic guy movie, but it's. I mean, how many guys do you know anymore that practice like you do? There's your answer.
How far can you go in between calls now these days?
Oh, we've always traveled like an hour. I would say I try not to, now that I'm kind of doing more of the large on my own. I mean, if they're a client, they're a client,
Yep.
As far as like people calling now for new people that if they're like too far away, and just tell them not interested.
It's hard. Yeah. Hard to make that work economically too, if you're, driving 2 hours and,
But I mean, like, how many days can you go before somebody might need your services around here?
Well, that's a problem now. Or I say not a problem. I do currently have a list of, like, horses to float, and then when it
Yeah.
gets a little nicer up, horses to castrate. That's really about all that's on my list.
Yeah.
And of course, Coggins are going to be coming up. It's the yearly test to make sure your animals can travel other places.
Yeah. So, yeah, Coggins testing, equine infectious anemia, just a communicable disease that horses can get through mosquitoes. Yeah. And they want to make sure that animals who are going to shows or competitions, things like that, aren't helping that disease travel anywhere that it shouldn't. But yeah, so times have changed.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you're right. Could I make a living right now doing just large animal? I mean, I don't think it'd be very profitable. And it would be erratic.
Hard to budget.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And so, but the proliferation of pet ownership now has completely changed the nature of veterinary medicine. I mean, now him and I from, usually April through October, you could work 7 days a week and have a full schedule every single day. You get a little bit of a lull in the wintertime, but during the springtime generally and through the summer, even in a community like this, there's more work than you can handle typically. It's kind of amazing how that's changed just 25 years, like I said. And to now this practice used to be, before I purchased it in 2015, primarily a large animal practice and would see some small animal cases in the morning. And now the practice is 98%
flipped.
Yeah, 98% pets now in just 25 years. So that's really incredible. Well, is it going to change? Can you foresee? Is it, we've got a homesteader movement. We've got everybody going back to the land, raising sheep and chickens. Is it ever going to be back to the days of the Yorkshire Dales here in Northwest Wisconsin, Todd?
I think so.
I think that's a pretty safe bet. It's we kind of, our family, we've tried to raise our own beef and raise our own, we've raised sheep and chickens, and we kind of homestead a little bit, and it's a blast, man. I joke about the edibles and things like that, have a little fun with it, because there is kind of your hippie homesteader crowd too, but then there's a whole lot of people who just want to raise their own stuff and raise your own food and do that kind of thing. But the scale is not nearly what it was when, you had every 40 acres up and down the country roads, guys had 25, 30, 40 dairy cows, and they were making their living that way. It doesn't exist anymore, does it? No. So if you do want to find out what that was like, I highly suggest the James Herriot novels, All Creatures Great and Small. There is a PBS series on now that, I don't know, it's like 5-6 seasons. You've watched it now, I think, a couple times. Yeah,
it's really good.
I highly recommend. Johnny, have you ever seen this?
No, I was going to ask you how many books are in that series, anyways? About
at least 4.
Yeah, and he's written other books too. That are about his adventures or about different things in veterinary medicine or animals even. But the series now is a PBS. It's a BBC series that they play on PBS. And I think it's like 6 or 7 seasons in, and I've kind of been working my way through it. I'm maybe season 3 or 4, but man, it's a throwback to, television 20 years ago, right? There's none of the sex and the swearing and the vulgarity or anything like that. I mean, the show's it's really like the books, man. It's like a warm bath.
Refreshing.
Yeah.
Refreshing.
Yeah. I mean, it's so good.
Again, yeah.
Yeah, it's so good. So I think the lead actor, the guy who plays James Herriot, I think his name is Nicholas Ralph, I want to say, something like that, British guy, But it is so good. I highly recommend it if anybody gets a chance. If you're an animal lover or veterinarian or in the veterinary industry or the farming industry, check that out, man. All Creatures Great and Small.
I'm sure we'll get some Googlers out there.
Yeah.
But when were these books made? About?
Well, I don't know if you can answer that. You know for sure the publication of the books. I mean, I know. So James Herriot, or the author, like I said, I believe his name is James White, is his non-pseudonym, real name. He lived from like 1900 to like late 90s, I want to say. So I think a lot of his books were published in the 60s or the 70s, somewhere in there. but they're a lot of them are short stories and just about his adventures, treating animals and working with farmers in rural England. And it's just, and there's humor to it. He's a good writer. He not only was he a veterinarian, but a good writer. And so the stories are really great. And, yeah, it's just a really cool book series. And when I bought the practice in Ridgeland, and I don't know, 6-7 years ago now, and I first moved our staff over there to try to help out in that community. The library over there, one of the first things they did is they gifted me like
Oh yeah.
like like the series in one binder.
Oh, nice.
The James Herriot series, a really nice gesture by that community. They were really hoping that we could make a veterinary clinic work over there, because over in Ridgeland, at one time, Ridgeland, smaller community than Cornell even, but at one time they were like a 4 or 5 doctor practice, just seeing farm calls and busy all the time. And when we made our effort to keep the clinic alive over there, primarily transitioned to small animal. I did some stuff for some farmers. We would castrate some beef herds over there, and had a small sheep herd that we would do castrations for and management on. But even over there, where it's probably even a heavier agricultural presence than here, it's same story. Unfortunately, it's dying off. Times are changing. The one thing that is always consistent, they say, is change, right? So as sad as it is, but at least we have the James Herriot novels, guys, to look back on and remember the days of yesteryear.
Ah, heck, one question, since we're on the topic. What do you think one of the biggest reasons is that for? Is it the next generation maybe doesn't want to put in all the work to keep the farm going? Is it the costs? Is it the profits aren't there like they used to with the upkeep and everything that you kind of have to do?
It's the profits and cost, yeah. A lot of these farm kids, I mean, a lot of the kids that they grew up on a farm, and they're really good workers. I mean, I know you hear about finding help now and work, like in the job market, but it's not the farm kids that are the problem, that's for sure.
Well, despite all the change, Dr. Berry, and especially the last 25 years, has it been worth it? Has the juice been worth the squeeze? You were Alabama boy to Coast Guard, and you became James Herriot in the flesh, man. And I'm sure that's come with ups and downs. But do you enjoy it as much as you did 25 years ago?
I still have compassion.
Yeah.
And that's a driving force behind the profession, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know that I enjoy it as much as I used to, because it was just one, you would physically get tired. And,
Sure.
Here it's more of a mental.
Mental stress
with pets, and
yeah.
It's more mental stress. So I can see why there's a lot of burnout.
Yeah.
Since I've transitioned more to small animals.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it is nice to take a break.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I still want to get back to it.
Yeah. I think about that too. Is there any way sometimes that I could go back and retrain myself to do large animal again and try to be like Todd? and to go back into the farms and
I saw a couple of cows just down the road. If you wanted, we can. I mean, we can put the show on pause, come back.
Well,
we'll get your reaction to the whole thing.
It's maybe someday. Yeah,
I got gloves in the car.
One can only hope. Yeah, as long as I don't have to do any palpating, we'll leave that to Todd, I guess. So. Well, you know what? It's been fun to kind of talk about your story, Todd. Obviously, you and I have been working together for a number of years now, and I've certainly appreciated you and all of that. But hopefully, this is something that you can hang on to and just kind of help this, remind you of how you came up and how you came to be and doing what you're doing now. Anything else that comes to mind that you would want to say in regards to your career as a veterinarian or where you sit now in the profession?
Hey, I'd just like to thank you.
Yeah.
Taking a chance on expanding your practice a little bit by bringing on a veterinarian, and you've been a great boss.
Yeah. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure. We're going to do everything we can to convince you, hold you hostage, try to keep you in the area as long as we can, at least part-time, but you've been a perfect fit for the community, and hardly ever do we get a negative thing that's been said about you. There's probably far more negative things that have been said about me than about you. So for that, I very
There are a
appreciate
couple of
it.
buttes.
Yeah.
I'll speak on behalf of a couple of your clients that can't speak for themselves.
Yes. Yeah.
Nothing but a pleasure. Every time I've had to come in here for some services, the area we're lucky and fortunate to have a couple guys that care so much about our pets and extended members of our family. So without getting sappy, I'll just let you guys know.
Well, we
Top notch. Couple of
appreciate that,
buttes.
Johnny. You
Go cry later on. But yeah, you did
yeah,
a great job.
you're going to just have to get some sheep and maybe a herd of like 25, 30 dairy cows that we can take care of, and then it'll make us all feel better. So
I try to not to do things that I can't pronounce the word of the act of the, what was that called? What was that word again?
palpation.
Palpations?
Yeah. We don't want to hear any stories about you
No.
doing any kind of palpation on the side, Johnny. So
On the side. Yeah. That guy will do anything for money, won't he?
yeah. Well, with that, ladies and gentlemen, I think we'll close down today's episode. Stay tuned. We'll do a little Q&A with our healthcare segment this week, and I think we'll have Dr. Berry substitute for me when we do our weekly healthcare Q&A with Dr. Rapp. But until next time, this was the Axe and Scalpel Podcast. If you get a chance, like us on any of our platforms, Spotify, Podbean. Johnny, what else are we on?
And in honor of Rick, let us end with a blessing.
Okay.
May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord look upon you with his favor, and may he be with you always. Amen.